On today's show, the San Diego Padres may be 7-0 and the vibes are immaculate, make no mistake. But that doesn't mean there aren't still some major questions for the Padres after the 7-0 start. Going to be talking about some of those, including Jackson Merrill's extension, what it may be a sign of in the future to come, what they can do at DH and left field, and a whole lot more. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Friday, April 4th. As always, I am your host, with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. You can also check me out as Javios on Instagram, where I've been posting more short form content. And of course, YouTube, stay tuned, because we've been posting more short form stuff on there as well. The other day, did a little video, a little explainer on Jackson Merrill. You know what I mean? Because why not? I'm getting used to this whole short form thing the kids these days love so much, guys. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And here's the thing, man. It's an early game, so it's possible. Early game, at least. Yeah, it should be for everybody. 2:20 Eastern time for myself when it comes to the Chicago Cubs. And this is going to be a fun series. I really do. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because while, yes, this is a team that has some decent starting pitching with guys like Justin Steele, guys like today's starter, by the time you're watching this, hopefully, Friday, Shoto Imanaga, they seem to not have a bullpen of any sort, and it's because, frankly, their ownership was too cheap. And I think that this offense, though, is going to be a really good test for the Padres. Randy Vasquez, Kyle Hart for sure. So I'm very excited for this weekend series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I love that it's just a weekend series. So I just get to vibe all weekend and just see this in the middle of the day. It's going to be a lot of fun. Very, very exciting. It's especially for me, because most of the time I'm staying up until like 12:30 at night, 1:30 at night. You know what I mean? Like just kind of watching them play the Oakland A's or whoever the heck the Padres are playing, because I am, of course, on the East Coast, guys. But I want to talk about the general state of the team. And while don't get me wrong, I think that there are some takeaways we've had so far, as I've talked about on episodes this week for my everydayers, including how much I think the bullpen is legit, right? I think the bullpen has an outside chance to be the best bullpen in baseball. I really do. I think that these starts by Dylan Cease and Michael King have been incredible. I think Tatis is looking like MVP superstar Tatis, not just really great player Tatis. A lot of exciting stuff, but I wanted to posit some questions about the 7-0 Padres and what are the biggest things and somewhat observations so far and questions that I would like to see answers to going forward. And there's some of them a little bit weird for you guys. I like to be a little bit creative, as folks know, on this show. And yeah, what am I wasting any more time for? Let's get into it. Let's talk about some of my biggest questions for the Padres. The first one comes as a result of, and I found this very, 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 very interesting. It is not just the Jackson Merrill extension, but I am wondering, what does this Jackson Merrill extension say about the organization of the Padres? And it's twofold. Number one, we all know the big question has been the spending and what's going on with ownership and what are the finances, given the TV deal falling apart, which Dodger fans elect to ignore all the time, by the way, and the passing of Peter Seidler and the ownership kind of turmoil going on there. Again, things that Dodgers fans pretend didn't happen. I think that, what does it say that they were like, yes, we're going to go out there and give some money? Maybe it does say that Jackson Merrill was like, yeah, let's make a team-friendly deal, because I know that this Padres team is not necessarily, they're a little bit tight on cash, and it's not like they're a team that's spending $70 million and telling me they're tight on cash. It's like, no, they've got like $200 million payroll. Like, they're not lying about this. They must really be like, hey, we got to watch some things, right? So what does it say about the team in terms of that? But I am also wondering, because if anybody checked out in the San Diego Union Tribune, Kevin Acee, who is a little bit of a, let's say, controversial figure amongst Padres fans sometimes. I think he's a pretty great reporter, though, overall, and I've talked with him before. He's a great guy. I think, even though the Hosmer stuff, I understand with Kevin Acee, his defense of him was a little bit, I disagreed with it, let's just say. He noted in his like Padres news and notes kind of, column that he writes for the Tribune, that Jackson Merrill, apparently the MLBPA was trying to get him to take even more money, which, by the way, is their job. This is not like, I'm not anti-MLBPA. Of course, I'm a human being. I'm going to be part of the, I'm going to support the union, right? Most times. And I think that that's fine. But I am wondering, is the Padres like, I'm wondering if this is really starting to pay off. And what does it say that Jackson Merrill was like, I want to just stay with this team? Because that's what that tells me. That he was like, I want to work around their constraints and I'm still going to get paid. Don't get me wrong. 9 years, 135 is not nothing, but folks, that is generational money for a lot of people. And the fact that it could get up there to 200 million with incentives and playing, basically being healthy over these next 9 years, which is great incentive to have, frankly. I think if you're a baseball fan, you're like, yes, I would love my player to stay on the field more. Any incentive possible, I take it. But what does it say about the organization, what they're developing into? Is that a big that also creates a bunch of other factors, which is something we've talked about in this podcast for years, which is just the Padres are trying to be very pro player and they like retaining their guys, right? Sometimes I don't think that's always the best decision. I think that the Yu Darvish contract is coming into question right now. I think that Jake Cronenworth is a little bit of a question mark, although I still like his because I think he's at second. I think it's going to pay dividends more. But I am wondering about like, that is a really good sign. And I know that it's not the be-all and end-all, but given that we know there are some crummy teams in Major League Baseball, I think that it's really an important factor that the Padres are out here being like, look at us, we actually pay our players, we don't nickel and dime people. Michael King was the first arbitration case we got into in like 10 years, right? And guess what? We still figured that one out. We came to an extension sort of deal. We figured it out. It just didn't happen initially, right? I think that there is a culture that could be brewing in San Diego. And I think that stuff is eternal, right? That is something that can happen all the time. And I think it may help you in future negotiations for free agents. It can help you in all sorts of ways in building this team up. Maybe even if it means attracting better staff, right? Like better training staff, people who are going to help out players. This filters down and it's the type of thing that you won't initially see on the scoreboard and every night with the standings and whatnot, but it adds up. And for everybody who's always saying like, how do the Rays keep doing this? How do the Dodgers keep doing this in terms of developing good players? Or I should say players that, because the Dodgers a little bit less so these days. They have a lot of big time superstars, but in their past, especially just a few years ago, like they turn all these players and make them a lot better. Michael Conforto, I'm convinced, is hitting 30 home runs this year. Michael Kopech was a little bit of a lost prospect, goes to the Dodgers, boom, he's great. I'm wondering what this means for the organization, right? And it says a lot that Jackson Merrill is like, I want to stay here. Now, of course, one counter to that, as I brought up on yesterday's episode, is that Jackson Merrill does come from wealthy sort of background, wealthy suburb. So, like, it's possible that, like, the money question is just not nearly going to be as pertinent, maybe, as it would be for some other guys. There is no fault of either party for that, right? That's fine. It's great. We love Jackson. He's a Padres legend, right? Like, already. But I'm just wondering, what does it say about the organization? That is kind of one of my first questions following the 7-0 start. Even though it has a little bit to do with the 7-0, not really, whatever. I'm really curious because the fact that the player was like, no, I really want to stay here. I don't care about the MLBPA right now. I get it. Love y'all. But I want to stay here with the Padres and get a good deal that gives me a lot of incentives, but it doesn't harm them in the day-to-day, kind of year-to-year, I should say, operations where they could put together a great team. Tells me he wants to win too. And I think that that's so exciting. It's so exciting that there's a lot of people that come to the Padres. Yes, because they're going to get paid, right? I think Xander Bogaerts was like, damn, 11 years, 270. Yeah, I'll play for the Marlins for that money. Like, I don't care what it is, right? But I think all in all, you're just seeing there's a real electric vibe here and people like playing here. And I think that that's what the Jackson Merrill story at least lends a little bit more credence to. But again, could just be me. And that's only one question, folks. And I've got several more to talk about here on today's podcast, guys. But first, we need to take a second to hear from some of our sponsors. And folks, one of our sponsors, you've heard them before. They help you with all your supplies. They're a house of supplies, some would say, guys. That's right, the friends and folks over at Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, don't worry. Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster Trade Program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Just for that, just for listening to this podcast. So go check it out, guys. That's supplyhouse.com. But we're not done just yet. We got to talk about something that is the antithesis of, carpeting and HVAC and all that stuff, but it's still a supply of sorts. You know what I mean? This is a really weird transition, but stick with me. We're talking about ingredients, the stuff that comes to fueling your body and making the quality matter and giving you all the nutrients that you need. And that's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. That's right, folks, because Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP. You've heard him. He has all the aura, folks. Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. It's great. Clean and transparent ingredients. I love that they prioritize wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial nonsense and junk. All right, we don't like artificial stuff around here. Not around these parts, folks. And whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed wheat protein and pre-workout deliver real results. Visit justingredients.us and use LockedOnMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow just.ingredients on Instagram. Just Ingredients, guys. Go check it out. And just like that, folks, we are back here thriving and most certainly vibing into segment number 2 of this podcast. Remember, follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPNO. Leave YouTube comments, comment to me on Twitter or whatever, I will answer. And of course, remember, Monday will be the mailbag, folks. We love the mailbag. We love it. We love the mailbag. The mailbag is amazing. Mailbag Monday, folks. But let's keep continuing with the biggest question. So we talked about the Jackson Merrill signing and what it could mean as on an organizational, cultural level, right? The other question is on field, right? And that is, what is going to happen with the DH, right? So you've had a couple, it's been a mishmash of lineup. And frankly, haven't done this a lot. Mike Schilt deserving some credit, and the Padres, coaching staff deserves credit because all the guys, for the most part, they've been mixing and mashing, and it's worked out pretty great, right? Gavin Sheets has been awesome so far after being an absolutely negative player for the White Sox, and they rightfully are like, you're just going to be a DH because you aren't very good defensively. And hey, sometimes when you're a player, being bad on defense, maybe it takes something out of you. And then when you can just focus only on DHing, it works. It's tough because then some players who are great, hitters struggle going to DH, right? This is what's so fun about baseball is you don't know how things are going to affect players. But I think that there are still some questions, right? Yuli Gurriel, we've talked about him before, and we're going to talk about him a little bit more. But what is going on with the DH? I'm wondering, folks, could the Padres go out and make a new addition early to either cover DH or cover another position, but especially DH in this case, early? People might forget, but remember, Luis Arraez was an early season addition after the Padres got hot. Now, don't get me wrong, it didn't happen like 10 games in, but I'm wondering if the Padres continue to be as hot as they are, and we're hoping that guys like Arraez, guys like Bogarts can step up, and Tatis really is going superstar mode. Manny Machado is going to start hitting homers, and the bullpen will lock things down, all that stuff. So there's still a lot up in the air, don't get me wrong. But they have the best run differential in baseball, I'm pretty sure at this point. I'm pretty sure. It could be the Dodgers now, but I remember checking the other day, and I think it was the Padres. I don't have it right in front of me. But it makes me wonder, could they be aggressive and be like, let's go out and shout out to Aram Layton of JustBaseball.com, a good friend of mine and occasional appearance on this podcast. He said, what about Jesus Sanchez? What if they go out and just get a guy who's fine, given the fact that their farm system is a little bit barren right now? It's a little bit of a desert, right? You've got Ethan Salas and Leonardo DeVries as the cactuses out there that you're really excited about. He plays okay defense. He's going to hit for a decent amount of power. And you just have a little bit of an idea of what you're getting from him, right? 100 WRC plus guy, he could just be fine, right? Do they do something like that? Or maybe they're like, you know what? We need to see exactly what's going on, and we want to play out what is going to happen with Jose Iglesias, who I really like and I think is going to be a good player for this team. But maybe they're saying, all right, let's still see how this pans out, right? Let's still see how Luis Yuli Gurriel pans out. Let's see how Gavin Sheets pans out. Maybe they want to wait a little bit longer before making a move, but I'm wondering, are they going to go after a DH? And it could be an early move. And they're going to say, let's just get someone who's okay, right? Again, this is operating under the assumption that like Gavin Sheets won't keep it up as they go out and make a trade, right? But even if he does, it could be a nice platoon bat. He's been struggling a little bit against breaking stuff. Maybe you only bring him in against certain matchups, depending on the day. I actually am not. Some people will say, well, what about left field? Jason Hayward's looked really rough so far. The reason I'm not bringing up left field for something that the team may trade for is because I actually think that Jason Hayward, while yes, I'm worried about the defense, I think that they could have Brandon Lockridge out there who provides speed. He's had a couple big hits so far, and he's had a couple really good defensive plays. Hayward's got defense as well. And then lastly, I still think they have Tirso Ornelas in the chamber if need be. So I think that there's at least some hope there. I don't know if they're like, oh God, yeah, we know what we could do with DH necessarily. I don't know if they're sure of that. I am still on the bandwagon of Ryan Mountcastle of the Baltimore Orioles. For people who don't know, and again, this is what happens sometimes. Right? You have to go out and go bargain bin hunting when you're spending as much money on superstars, correctly so in a lot of cases, as you are with the Padres. But I think the Orioles have just a little bit of a glut of players right now, and I don't know exactly what they're going to do. And I think that Ryan Mountcastle is a guy who could just provide them some power. Right, this is a guy who's hit 30 home runs before. By the way, he plays like every other day. He's not always playing consistently. He has shown some incredible power numbers, right? And he's gotten better defensively. That's a 100 WRC plus guy. I think he could be a nice addition to this team because, as we've talked about a lot, the power numbers on this team, unless Gavin Sheets turns into a 25 home run guy, it's Machado, it's Tatis, and it's Merrill in terms of guys that we feel pretty confident about with power. And then Jake Cronenworth, maybe he can hit 16 to 17 or whatever, right? Like maybe he can be a decent power guy, right? Don't get me wrong, but mostly just a nice utility infielder and whatnot, and be the Cronenworth that we all know and love, right? His career high in home runs was 21. Don't get me wrong. I'd love if he did that again, but he hasn't done that since. So he's a little bit. So if you added Ryan Mountcastle, you gave him a little bit more regular playing time. And also he can play first base because we have often wondered, is the reason Eggy Rosario isn't on this team because they're like, you know what? Gurriel is more of a first baseman. Now, I would argue just put Eggy at first base, figure it out, get that bat in the lineup against lefties. But maybe that's what they're thinking. Okay, if Mountcastle isn't DHing, he can at least play first base and has actually played it pretty well. And has played outfield in the past too. So I think that's a player to target because I don't know, folks. Is Baltimore going to be good this year? Because Baltimore's lineup all of a sudden looking very Now, I still think they're going to be a good team. But that division, with the Red Sox being good, with the Yankees looking pretty good, right? I don't know. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, especially with the fact that their rotation doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. Do you make a trade for Ryan Mountcastle? That could be something the Padres do. So I'm very much keeping an eye on what's going on with DH. But that's not all, folks. Let's talk about the next question. And it is with someone I brought up a lot. It's Eggy Rosario. Shockingly, according to AJ Casaval, of course, MLB writer for the Padres, and a welcome surprise for many with the Padres, Eggy Rosario, who's one of the final roster cuts last week, of course, cleared waivers and will remain with the organization. He was sent to AAA. Meantime, Oscar Gonzalez was added to the 40-man roster. Forgot to talk about that as well, by the way. See if it clearly, in my opinion, Oscar Gonzalez, they're trying to figure out left field. I still think that they're plugging away and they're like, what options do we have? And you can be in worse spots because you have stars to make up for it, but I still think they're trying to figure things out. What is going on with Eggy Rosario is like my next big question for the Padres following their start. Because I get that they have Jose Iglesias, but for me, I just think Yuli Gurriel. Now, here's the thing. Let me be very fair for a second, and which is wild because, as everybody knows, this has been my bit early on in the season so far, right? But Yuli Gurriel has not had like a ton of at-bats. Let me be very clear. Like, he's not gone out there and gotten like multiple chances. He's not an everyday player, right? He's slashing 125, 222, 125. He's got 14 WRC plus, but that's only 9 plate appearances. But I will say in those 9 plate appearances, he doesn't look as terrible as, say, Jason Hayward has looked so far, who's basically only had like 1 hard hit ball, and Gurriel did at least have that 1 RBI. It snuck through, granted. He does look like a guy that is still willing to take some pitches, which is why I think he made the team. People were like, well, he doesn't strike out too much. I think that's what the Padres were thinking. But I'm just not certain that they're going to keep him on the team forever, right? I think he does have to start producing. I don't think the Padres are going to be the way they were with Tyler Wade last year with Yuli Gurriel because he does not provide you that speed value that Tyler Wade could potentially value. Eggy Rosario, on the other hand, provides decent average defense, and if the Padres struggle against lefties, depending on matchups, you know that you could bring in Eggy, he's 25 years old, crush lefties. Or is the team like, we still kind of want to trade this guy, right? We still want to trade this guy. Maybe he could be part of the package to go out and get Ryan Mountcastle, who I said before. So basically just plain question, what's going on with Eggy Rosario? Are they going to give him a shot? Because I think there are some players on this team, particularly Yuli Gurriel, that I wouldn't mind seeing them be like, let's give this kid a chance. Because we barely have. And even when we barely have, he crushes lefties. He has some value. And again, you could put him in the infield. I don't see the value for Yuli Gurriel so far. So we'll have to see how that pans out with Iglesias, being the guy who's been playing second for them so far and all that. We'll have to see. Don't get me wrong. But I'm really curious to see how that situation develops. But folks, we're not done with the questions, of course. We've got three more big questions for the Padres that we got to get into. But first, a few words from one of our sponsors. And folks, that sponsor is the good lads you've heard of before, folks. You know how legendary they are. We've talked about them on this podcast for far too long. Not far too long. I don't know why I'm procrastinating an ad read, but it is the legendary folks over at Game Time. And here's the thing about Game Time. The longer you take to figure out what you're doing, the way that I was heading into this ad read, the prices actually go down with Game Time. And there's nothing better, folks, than that, folks. And when it comes to baseball season, which we are in the midst of course, there's nothing better than catching the game live, having all the ballpark food and all that stuff. And if you want to go last minute, that's what's so great about them. They make tickets easier to buy the closer you get to Game Time with last minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. It's the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as the Padres play the Cubs, I can count on them to help grab tickets. Maybe you realized, you know what? My Saturday plans, my weekend plans, they're not panning out. My Dungeons and Dragons session isn't happening. My, danger bar hopping, whatever, isn't happening. My time at the beach isn't happening. Whatever you're doing, maybe not the beach. It's a little bit early for that. But you get my point. Go check out Game Time, guys. You can get last minute tickets. They have unbeatable prices. They filter out the fluff, giving you the best deals. Not always effortless. It filters it all out and gives you top discounts in the entire stadium. And before you buy, you can see the seat views for a little visual picture of what you're getting into. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed with Game Time. And folks, we are back thriving and most certainly vibing here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Remember, one more time, go check me out at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, on Twitter/X and Blue Sky. Send me your questions in preparation for the Monday mailbag. Let's continue some of the biggest questions we have for the Padres following their start. The next one I want to talk to you guys about, aside from our boy Eggy, aside from our guy Ryan Mountcastle, who I've been talking about for a long time, and aside from Mr. Jackson Merrill and the culture with the Padres, is, can Dylan Cease really add a third pitch? It's a small one. But these past few starts, we've seen him use changeups more than he has before in any individual start in his career. And I just think that I'm wondering, because I do have my doubts, right, with him adding a third pitch. And again, this could just be where I'm totally off base. But given that he's an impending free agent, and given how good his fastball slider combination already is, and he can just throw a knuckle curve in there every now and then, whatever he wants to do, I could see a world in which Cease just backs off of this at some point, and that this is just a little bit of an early season thing, right? Maybe he isn't quite ready to throw out pitches that might affect his overall numbers and have him get clobbered, because in the past, let's be very clear, his third offering has not always been great, right? Last year, his knuckle curve, opponents hit 280 off of it, right? That wasn't very good. The year before that, his knuckle curve, opponents hit 298 off of it, right? That's the thing here. And so far, he's looked okay, right? The changeup that he's thrown so far 11% of the time, opponents haven't hit anything off of it. But I'm wondering if it doesn't work because there isn't the best necessarily movement I've ever seen in the world from it. It's got Not exactly the best drop that I've ever seen in my life against right-handed batters. Just, again, not incredible in terms of induced vertical break, the movement, all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if the fact that batters are hitting poorly against it is a sign that it's a great pitch. I think his four-seamer and slider are, and especially the slider, are awesome. But, let me tell you, I think that this could be a big deal to follow for the rest of the season. Not just for how it affects the Padres, but potentially how it affects Dylan Cease as a player, right? Because I just think that this is a guy who really kind of needs that third pitch. And if he ever develops anything that's a decent third pitch that he can go to throw off batters, then we're looking at like a top 5 pitcher in baseball. I'm being dead serious. Like, I think that's how talented Dylan Cease is. Maybe a top 8, top 7, something like that. If you want to have some of the younger guys, you got Paul Skeens in there, obviously. Spencer Strider, when he comes back, I get it. But overall, that is something to monitor, is just, does Dylan Cease, can he add a third pitch? Is he going to abandon this pursuit of a third pitch at some point, particularly when it comes to the changeup? I'm curious. Next question, though, is simple. Yu Darvish's health, right? What's going to happen with Yu Darvish? Because there were rumblings, and I think it was really interesting, the rumblings that came out that were basically like, hey, like, it's not totally inconceivable that he goes out and retires, right? Like, maybe he retires early, especially if he keeps having issues with his body breaking down as he gets, older and deeper into this run with the Padres. And clearly they've had a good relationship with Yu Darvish too. Let's not forget, last year when he had his personal kind of issue, the agent for Yu Darvish talked about this, or at least the agent, I think, for Roki Sasaki talked about this. And Yu Darvish himself was very grateful, right? But for a guy who's owed $16 million and then 15 and then 15 for 3 more years, he's owed that much money. Like, it would be a little bit surprising for sure if he retired. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just wondering what's going on with Yu Darvish's health in terms of the long term and then, of course, the short term. Because the Padres, while yes, they have been dealing with their pitching, we still have questions with the back end of the rotation, right? We do. With Yu Darvish, it becomes a little bit less, daunting, I guess, the idea. But with Kyle Hart and Randy Vasquez, I know they've had some pretty good starts. I'm really curious to see what they do this weekend, especially against a very, very good Cubs offense that's been raking with Seiya Suzuki, with obviously Kyle Tucker, and you've still got some decent players on there like Nico Horner, right? They've got a really good offense over there. I think they're first in runs scored. So I'm curious to see how they perform there. But Yu Darvish, what is his health? What's going on? Can we expect him not just to come back, but be healthy when he's back and pitch well? Because when he's been healthy, we've known that he's been dealing with stuff. Every time. 2 years ago when he had the 4.5 ERA and he pitched a lot of innings, we literally knew he was kind of dealing with some stuff as the season went along. They kind of reported that. They were like, yeah, he had some issues. His first year with the Padres, he was great in the first half. And then what happened? Some back issues and whatnot. And that's why he a little bit, or at least could be a good explainer for why he imploded, or at least got a lot worse in the second half in 2021, along with the whole rest of the team, frankly. But that is my question. And the other question is Kyle Hart. Obviously, what's going on? Kyle Hart, who are you? Everything about Kyle Hart is another question of mine. Because in his first start, he wasn't, I don't want to say erratic. That's not necessarily, that's too strong of a word. But he was a little bit of a pitch, like in terms of his pitch mix, it was very like, okay, we don't know exactly what's going on here. And that's fine, right? I like that he had really good control. That was great. But remember, this is also a guy that doesn't have the best fastball velocity. But he was throwing all over the place, guys. Like, he had the most, like, electric kind of, like, mix of pitches I'd ever seen, frankly. He threw 21 sweepers, 20 changeups, 15 sinkers, 12 four-seam fastballs, and 12 sliders. So, for me, it's not just, is Kyle Hart going to be good? It's, what is he? What is he going to go with? Because I understand he changed the arm slot. I understand that he added the sweeper. And that was his most used pitch. I don't think that's a coincidence. But I'm still wondering exactly what is he going to throw more, right? The batting average on the sinker wasn't great. Had expected slugging of like 4,000. It wasn't great. But overall, it's just one outing. And I think the changeup especially looked good. I think that the sinker and the sweeper, or maybe not the sweeper, because that is what he's been doing better with. I'm going to trust the reports about him from the KBO. But some of his other stuff, his four-seamer, is it fast enough? Is it something that he's going to be able to throw really all that much with confidence, I think? And then same thing with the slider. But I do like what I saw from the changeup. 54% whip rate on that changeup. Again, just one start, but that's really nice. He looked like he's a guy that maybe figured out something. He struggled last time he was in MLB. And you know what? We've seen success stories, whether it be Nick Martinez, whether it be Eric Feed. Eric Feed is a great comp for this guy. And I know, if you're listening to this podcast and you're a little bit more casual, you're like, Eric Feed? That's not what? You know what I mean? You're not exactly excited about the Feed man, right? Who's pitching for St. Louis right now. But let me tell you, if you want to be excited, Eric Feed, remember that this could be the last guy in the rotation. This dude last year put up a 3.3 ERA. He was really good. Yes, the FIP was a little bit higher at 3.86, but he was solid in 177 innings. He got enough strikeouts to make it by. He didn't give up the hardest contact in the world. He was an okay pitcher after struggling with the Washington Nationals, right? And then he came back into the league and did very well. I think the Padres might know something. I really do. I think the Padres might know something, and that's why they went for Kyle Hart, and that's why they decided not to sign, say, what's his name? That got signed by the Brewers. What's that dude's name? Jose Quintana, right? Like maybe they want to go with a guy like this who's going to cost less, and they think that there's a little bit more upside. All he has to do is fill innings. But my big question will be is not just is he going to be good, what does the pitch mix look like? What is he going to trust more? I like the changeup, and he likes the sweeper, and everybody else that I've read seems to say, yes, the sweeper is good. But all those other pitches, I just thought it was a fascinating debut that he basically tried everything. And it was against a Guardians team, and next one is going to be against the Cubs. A little bit better of a team, right? So very curious to see what he develops into as a pitcher overall. And folks, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast. That was a really fun one, honestly. I had fun doing this one, just asking big questions. What are your guys' big questions? Please let me know in the comments. Aside from just, is Tatis going to win the MVP? That's not a question. That's like kind of boring, Frank. You know what I mean? Let's be a little bit bold, as I know you listeners and whatnot can be. But even if you are not, thank you for listening to today's episode. One more time, my biggest questions for the Padres so far is the Jackson Merrill signing, a sign of a cultural change with the Padres. Is it further lending credence to that? The fact that he might have turned down more money to make it work, that could bode well. Should they trade for a DH? Will they trade for a DH? And can it be early? Can they go for my boy Ryan Mountcastle? Will Eggy Rosario be traded? Will he be used at all in place of Yuli Gurriel? Can Dylan Cease add a third pitch? Yu Darvish's health? And what kind of pitcher is Kyle Hart? Those are my biggest questions following the 7-0 start. We could have talked about Xander Bogaerts, but I think I have a feeling we got to wait until Monday on him. I really want to see what he does this weekend too, because he's starting to scare me again. Very much starting to scare me again. I just don't have any new notes on why he's scared me, but we'll see, folks. But until that next time, stay safe and of course, stay faithful, my fire faithful homies. Take care.